Hi, folks, and welcome to Paddock Experience. Jordan Lewis here and Greg Foreman alongside me. We're here to explain the formalities and kind of give you an introduction into what Formula One is.
Yeah, so if you're new to the sport, hopefully you have a better understanding after this. It should be short and sweet. Basically, we're going to go over some of the rules that Formula One goes by, how the cars are set up, what makes the cars different from other motorsports, and a few other things. So stick around and hopefully you learn a thing or two. So basically, Formula One is considered the pinnacle of motorsport. This is because not only do the cars go as fast as most other racing events, but they also corner with G's in excess of any other motorsport, similar more so to what a fighter pilot experiences. So not only do they go fast, but they can corner extremely well, and that's what makes these cars faster around most circuits than any other car in existence. Because of this, most of the effort put into building a car goes into the aerodynamics of the car. Because of this, most of the rules are also centered around the aerodynamics of the car, what the teams can or cannot do.
Some of you may be wondering how far teams can deviate from the rules and what they can do on changing the car. The cars in general, there are aerodynamic requirements and there are restrictions.
Basically, any of the changes that are made directly to a part, an aerodynamic part such as the front wing or any bodywork, has to be approved by the FIA, which is the overriding regulator of the sport. Basically, they have to show them what they're doing and ask them if it's okay that they run it for the next race weekend or throughout the season. We're going to kind of give you a rundown of what happens during the week of a Formula One event. Starting with the Friday free practice, there are 3 practices that teams run during a race weekend. 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday. Saturday afternoon is qualifying. Usually happens around the same time as the race would normally start on the Sunday. Sunday, the race is the primary event and only event.
On Friday practice, teams are allowed to attend 2 practices. One usually occurs in the early AM around 9, and the second one occurs later in the mid-afternoon, usually around 1:32, and both are 90-minute sessions in which teams can critique the car in aerodynamics, suspension, engine, anything you want, all the way down to the driver's requirements to where they want understeer, oversteer, and so forth.
So basically, Friday is like a setup day for the teams. You'll see them change the wings, and they'll change a lot of different things just to try and figure out the track, figure out the weather situation.
Yeah, it's a combination of the driver figuring out the track and figuring out the car and what he wants, and it's really essential that they take advantage of this. And in some cases, teams haven't participated in the Friday practice, but if you don't utilize your time well and manage it well, you're going to have problems getting your car at the podium on Sunday.
Basically, practices have become the testing of Formula One in recent years. Moving on to Saturday, there's another practice the teams are allowed to attend. Following that would be qualifying. The practice on Friday is also a 90-minute session. Qualifying is a little bit different. They have 3 different sessions during qualifying in which some teams are knocked out of each session. You want to explain how that goes?
Yeah, qualifying goes in a 3-tier process, Q1, Q2, and Q3. And all 24 drivers will be qualifying in Q1. The first session, Q1, is for 20 minutes. The drivers can go in and out of the pits whenever they please, but they're just required to set a lap time before the 20 minutes is up. The top 15 racers of Q1 move on to Q2. The drivers not making it into Q2 are locked into their grid position. Then the top 15 of Q2 will race and set the same time. It's sort of the same premise as Q1. They'll set their time, get a fastest lap, and whatever they can get in. And then the top 10 of Q2 move on to Q1. And as we said before, Q2, whoever did not make the time cut, or the top 10 fastest times, are locked into their grid positions, and that's how they'll start the race. Moving on to Q1, we have top 10 drivers, and they have 10 minutes to set their fastest lap time, and usually most teams will switch tires, switch on to option tires, depending on how their tire strategy will go. But you'll see teams making last-minute changes. Some drivers won't go out until the last minute so they can optimize fuel and also just kind of keep the tires warm and do their absolute fastest lap.
So in all of these qualifying, the lap times are reset in between each session. So if you set a fast lap on Q1, it doesn't carry over into Q2 and so forth and so on. So in Q3, the top 10 drivers have to go out if they want to get pole position. It doesn't matter how good they did in the previous sessions.
Correct. Yes, they have to go out and set a lap time each and every qualifying session. So you can't just sit in the garage once you get a fastest lap time in, say, Q1. This allows for constant shuffling within the grid, so it just makes F1 more interesting. Unlike some other sports where, once you set your fastest lap time, you can go in and sit on that.
So how the cars are set up during qualifying is locked until the race. So there can be no changes done to the car at all between qualifying and the race. This ensures that you can't set up your car super low to the ground or anything like that so that when you put full fuel in it, it will be different. It kind of makes them have a compromise between race strategy and all-out one-lap speed.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to set your car up entirely for qualifying. That would be a huge mistake.
At the end of each session, there will be certain cars that are taken in to be inspected more thoroughly by the FIA. Also, on top of this, each car will be weighed separately and the driver separately, and this ensures that the teams haven't cheated in any way going below the minimum weight requirement. And you'll also see drivers trying to stay hydrated during these sessions so that they keep their weight up. This ensures the rules are being followed and the safety for the drivers. That wraps up the events for Saturday, and the next event would be the race, and that happens on Sundays. The time in which the race takes place can vary by location. Most races happen midday, though, and there will be a few evening races this year.
There's actually even one night race, which is Singapore. That's always a famous one. A lot of celebrities come out for that.
Yeah, prior to the race, there are quite a lot of spectacle going on. The whole race weekend is kind of a party weekend, especially in places like Monaco, Singapore, really everywhere.
Yeah, we actually got to experience some of those in both Austin and Montreal. It was pretty fun.
All races on the circuit have to meet a minimum distance requirement. This changes the laps for each race. Some laps will have around 60 laps, some may have even more or less. But all races must travel at least 305 kilometers. The only exception to that rule is, of course, in Monaco, where the track is much shorter, and that race must be 260 kilometers or more. Also, races can take no longer than 2 hours.
Yeah, that just kind of helps keep the drivers safe. You definitely don't want to be in a car in some of the hot heat.
And the physical exertion that they put out, really.
Yeah, with all those G-forces and everything. That takes a lot on your body.
Absolutely.
During the race, the teams are required to change their tires at least once, whether it be from option to prime or prime to option. Whatever tires they qualified on.
The only exception to this rule is if it's raining, where they don't have to change tires at all. So there will be at least one pit stop during the race, and these pit stops are unlike any pit stop you've ever seen if you watch motor racing. They are lightning fast, literally 3 seconds, they can change all 4 tires.
Yeah, I think the record is coming from Ferrari or Red Bull. I think it's 2.3 this year. They actually just changed to a single nut design just in the past few years, and it's a really spectacular experience to see on TV because as soon as the car is up and in the air, it's coming back down. It's never up in the air for more than 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, so the cars are not the only thing that's fast in Formula One.
Yeah, exactly. The pit crews definitely spend a lot of time perfecting their pit stops, and there's 3 people on each tire. There's a gunman, there's a holder which holds the new tire and puts it on, then there's a remover which removes the old tire. So there's 3 on each tire, so that's 12 people there. And then there's a guy holding the lollipop, which is the sign in front telling them when to go and stop and where to stop. Then there's the crew chief who's telling the driver to go and giving the okay. And then there's also 2 jackmans, one in the front and one in the back. And Greg, do you want to explain how the jack system works?
Yeah, most teams actually use an electronic jack. Red Bull kind of perfected this solution. The car runs into the front jack, and it's basically just one carbon fiber lever that they use. So once the car's in the air, the jackman in the front moves off to the side, and once all 4 wheels are secured to the vehicle, both jacks will disengage automatically from sensors that are placed on the mechanics' guns that they use. And so that ensures an even faster and a secure release for the pit stop.
You can definitely see there's not just thought put into the car. It's how the pit stop is constructed, how they do it, and the technology they use to perfect it. And races can come down to pit stops, and you will see once you watch Formula One, there's teams either doing 1 or 2 stop strategies, and the time you take within these pits can determine how the race ends up.
Yeah, pit stop time during the race is always very interesting to see who will come out at what position in the race. And it's always different because some teams indeed trying to take less pit stops, so they'll try and run as much further along the race. So during the race, there's up to 24 competitors. This year there will be 22 competitors, but points are only awarded to the top 10 of each race.
And the point scheme actually goes 25 to first place, and then on down it goes 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1.
So these points are awarded to the drivers placing in each position, but the points are also given to their team. Each team in Formula One has 2 drivers in a race, and if these drivers place in points, the constructor, which is the team, also gets the points that were awarded to the driver. So there's really actually 2 championships going on during Formula One. One for the driver and one for the teams.
Some of you may be curious about what's going on the track, and when the commentators are saying and discussing things that are going on in sectors. Tracks consist of 3 sectors. Each track consists of 3 sectors, in which a car will be timed on how fast he's doing within that sector. And that just helps teams improve more accurately and help figure out where the driver's becoming slow, where he needs to speed up in. And it definitely just makes it more interesting for the fans too, to also keep track of how much the drivers are improving within each sector.
Yeah, and oftentimes you'll see that the fastest possible lap isn't actually just one driver. It will be a combination of 3 different drivers, who's the fastest in Q1, or Sector 1, I should say, and who's the fastest in Sector 2 and 3. And so that lap time is the theoretical best lap time, and it's usually not just the one driver that's doing that.
Each driver has a best lap time and a best sector time. Now, these best sector times are determined by green font. That's how you determine what the driver is improving on. When the font turns purple, that means the personal best, or the best of the day.
Yeah, so that's if you're watching on TV, you'll see on the left-hand side most of the time the times in which the drivers are, and also the place they're running. There are a few penalties that happen most often during the race, and we'll go over those. One would be corner cutting, or exceeding the lines of the circuit. So that you'll see white lines on the circuit, and should the car cross over these lines with all 4 tires, that's considered a penalty. And in most cases, they will be given a drive-through or a 5-second grid penalty. A drive-through penalty is a penalty in which the driver has to go through pit lane and cannot make any stops or changes to the car, otherwise it won't be a completed drive-through. Drive-through penalties have to be served within a set number of laps as well, so they can't just go out, continue the race, and not serve their penalty. Another common penalty is causing an accident. It's mostly when cars are cut off by another car on the racing line. A good rule of thumb basically in Formula 1 is that half of your car has to be in front of or in the driver's line of sight. Otherwise, that driver is not responsible for stopping or slowing down to let you have part of the circuit. So if you cut into another racing line without them basically knowing, or you having an advantage, you will get given a penalty as well.
Those are sort of the guidelines and punishments for when accidents occur, and how you determine who was responsible and so forth. In a rare occasion, another penalty you'll see is blocking. When a slower driver is trying to prevent a faster driver from passing him, he can actually get a drive-through penalty for swerving and cutting the guy off purposely because he knows he's slower. On a rare occasion, you'll hear a rule. It's called the 107% rule. During the first phase of qualifying, which is Q1, any driver who fails to set a lap within 107% of the fastest lap time in Q1 will not be allowed to start the race. However, in exceptional circumstances, which could include a driver setting a suitable time during practice, the stewards may permit the car to start. Well, that wraps up today's show. I'm Jordan Lewis, and alongside me is Greg Foreman. We hope you enjoyed your first Paddock experience.